Welcome everybody to another episode of Bonsais Forever. I have here a juniper chinensis. This is a cutting from one of my other trees. I've been working on this tree for about 2 years now, I think. Yeah, roughly 2 years, if not pretty close. And I wired it to do an upright or an informal upright style tree, and it was looking really good, and then it started growing like crazy, and now it looks a little weird. So I'm gonna go back through and I'm going to rewire some of the branches, and I'm going to trim it up a little bit. First thing I'm going to do is take off all the foliage that doesn't need to be here for this composition, which means I'm going to take off all the stuff that's growing on the bottom. All this stuff like this comes off, all the stuff right in the crotches of the branches, that stuff comes off too. Alright, so as you're going through and taking off foliage that you don't want, you can also look to see if there is back budding, like this spot right here. There's a little bud right here. So say I have a branch that I really don't like and I have back budding there, just leave that branch. And if that branch grows the way you would prefer it to grow, then use that as the branch rather than the original branch was there. You can just take the other branch off. You're going to want to go all the way out the secondary branches also and take off any back budding that you don't need. Taking this piece out here. Bottom piece. Get it where I want it to be. Some of this interior branches in here, I might let that back bud later, but for now I just want to set the structure of the tree again, because it kind of went out of its structure already. So as you're working on a tree, like long term, as you're working on a tree, you want to make sure that all of your moves on the tree are going to benefit the tree in the long run. So taking off too much foliage or taking off foliage in the wrong spots, you want to be careful of that, but you don't want to be afraid of it either. These trees do grow, so some of the stuff will grow back. On junipers, you don't ever want to take off all the foliage from any branch unless you're trying to kill the branch. Just taking off all the foliage will kill the branch. So if you're wanting to make deadwood, that's how you make deadwood. You take off all the foliage, kill the branch, it turns into deadwood. Peel some of the bark as I see it needing peeled. So right here, this is a good example of what they call handlebar branches right here. And if you can see it, it is starting to make a reverse taper right here. So one of these branches has to go, and it's going to be this one, because this branch will take its place. So it'll be one, then two, and it kind of crisscrosses up the tree, so this one's got to go. So I'm going to cut it off out here because I can make a piece of deadwood with that. So let's get started wiring. So I was watching a video. It was done by Bonsai Mirai. And that's one of the channels that I really like watching. I'm not sponsored by him. He didn't ask me to say anything. Just giving a shout out because I really appreciate his videos. His name is Ryan Neal. That's who I've learned a lot of stuff from too. When you wire a juniper, you want to use a wire that is 30% the size of the branch. This seems to hold the branch. You want the wire to hold the branch. When you put it into place, you want it to stay in place. You don't want to put the branch into place and then it start pulling back on itself, because then you wasted your time putting the wire on. You wasted the wire, you wasted the tree's energy. It's not going to hold it, and then you have to go back later and redo it anyway. So you want the branch to stay where you put it. So you want to use the right size of wire for it. So the longer the branch is, the thicker you want to do the wire, and the more foliage that the branch has on it, the thicker you want to do the wire. So this one is going to be about a 30% size, and this is going to be about a 30% size, because this is a pretty small tree. So I'm going to wire these two branches with one piece of wire, because you want to join two branches together. I'll wire these two together, and those two together. This almost does a handlebar look, but the way I'm going to wire them, it's not gonna quite look like a handlebar. Hopefully, if it does, I could turn one of those into deadwood later also. So let's get started with the wire here. And as you're wiring, you want to use the same angle, same space, and no gaps. And with the no gaps, that means you want the wire to be firmly against the branch. You don't want any gaps in between the wire and the branch, because then it just doesn't hold. So the other thing, you want one wire to go one way, the other wire to go the other way. So this wire is going to go this way, so I can pull this branch this way. This wire is going to go this way, which kind of goes the other way, but as you're looking at it, it kind of goes the same way. So anyway, this one is going to get wired this way. I want it nice and tight here underneath the armpit of this branch. And I want to hold the wire as I'm wrapping it around the branch, because I don't want to use the branch as the fulcrum. I want to use my hands as the fulcrum to bend the wire. If you use the branch as the fulcrum, then it can damage the bark, and you don't want to damage the bark on the branch. You want to hold the branch with the wire. So you don't want the wire to be detrimental to the branch. You want it to be beneficial to the branch. And on this spot here, I did give it a little bit more of an angle because of this branch. So I went over the top of it instead of behind it. Because going behind it, there's a chance that this branch could die if I pull it against it too hard. So I'm going over the top of it, and that'll actually spread the branch out a little bit also. And as I'm wiring it, I'll go through and I'll prune back some of the foliage that I missed during the cleanup phase. This one I have enough room to go behind it. I'm going to wire it as far out onto this branch as I can to make sure I have full control over the whole branch. At the end, I am going to wire it looser because there's a lot of foliage here and I don't want to damage the foliage, but I want to have control at the end of the branch. So I am going to wire it a little bit looser here because it'll still aim the branch in the right direction, but it won't damage the foliage. So I'm going to make sure it's on an upward stroke here at the end. Pull some of the foliage out of the wire so that it's mostly just around the branch, just like that. And then go ahead and wire this other branch, making sure that I'm holding wire against the branch. Also, holding the wire gives you a chance to be able to move the foliage out of the way so you don't damage it as you're putting the wire on the branch. Alright, so now the end of this branch has also got quite a bit of foliage on it. I want to leave some of it on here, or most of it on here. It doesn't look like it all looks like it's going back and forth down the branch, so it looks just fine. And then I don't need to take any off. All right, so I'm gonna get it to the close to the end here, and upward motion, just like that. Foliage around it like that. There you go, like that. Right? So now setting the lower branch actually sets the structure for the rest of the tree, because you kind of want it to follow each other up the tree, be a similar shape in similar directions and stuff like that. So if this branch is going straight out, I kind of want this branch to go straight out too. But I don't want this branch to go just straight out. That's boring. Excuse me, I'm having hiccups. So I want to move this branch a little bit, and right here, if you just bend this, it'll damage the branch at the trunk. So you want to hold the branch at the trunk and make sure that you're holding mostly wire, not the branch, and bend the branch over, right, to give it some direction. Then I'm going to bend it the other way, right here, bend it back a little bit. I'm going to continue kind of zigzagging this branch out a little bit here, and that kind of separates the branches out also. And then there's a larger branch here that I really want to keep that, because that could be the very end of this branch eventually. There's that. It looks like a pretty decent shape on it. I don't want it to be too crazy bendy, because that looks weird too. So I might actually let this be the end of the branch. So I might just bend it to where it's holding that direction. And I'm gonna leave this little piece of this branch on here, so that this piece of wire holds this branch going in that direction. But I'm gonna take the rest of it off, just like that. So this branch is still pointing outwards, but the end of it's gone. All right, so now I'm gonna go over here and do this branch. And I did like how this kind of dips here, but I don't want this facing all straight up and down like that. So I'm gonna bring it back around this. But I do kind of want this branch to be going out like it looks natural on the tree. I'm going to bring it back like this. And this, I think, actually is going to be the end of this branch. This way. If you can't bend it with your fingers, just grab the wire, bend it with the wire, just like that. So this looks pretty good. I'm going to take this off, I think. Yeah, I'm going to take this off. Just like that. So that looks pretty good like that. And it gives the branch a good basic direction. And we'll go back and wire the secondary branches also. So these two branches, I think I'm going to wire this branch by itself, or take it off. I don't like two-dimensional trees, and I think taking this branch off would make this tree relatively two-dimensional, going just straight out this way. I think I am going to leave this branch. I'm going to wire it out in this direction. If later on it doesn't look good, we can take it off. I'm going to use a much smaller wire. I got all my wire mixed up. I put it all in a pile. So I can use relatively small wire on this. If I can find the end of it. Alright, let's grab a piece of it. What I'm going to do with this one, I'm going to just wrap it on the piece of deadwood and go back down the tree to the branch that I want to wire. And I'm going to cross over the other piece of wire and then go across the top of the trunk here and then underneath the branch. I'm just holding the wire with my fingers here. I just want to bring it towards going up under the branch. I'm going to cut it off. And that branch, actually, I don't want it to be straight, so we're going to bend it out like this. And then I'm going to bring it back here like that. So it kind of has a S-curve in there a little bit. Then I want to separate these two branches. I kind of want to bring the end of this branch back into those to make it look like a little bit of a pad right there. And this branch is quite long and leggy, but it'll thicken up a little bit as this branch thickens up. I'm going to leave all the foliage on there so that this one will thicken up a little bit faster because it is close to the base of the tree. Being that this is the first branch, that's the second branch. So I do want it to thicken up. It's going to take some time, but it's okay because it does look natural. So not everything has to be exactly perfect on a bonsai tree either. So this next two branches are these two branches. They are thicker than using the really small wire here, and this wire might be a little thick for this. Yeah, this is going to be a little thick for this. I think I might be able to use the really thin wire. I don't have any other thinner wire. I think this wire might work, because this branch worked just fine, and these aren't that much bigger. So this one I want to bend this way, so I want the end of the wire to be going in that direction. So if I bend it around this direction, that means the wire will be going this direction. And this one I want to be going that direction, so I'm going to wrap the wire that way around this branch. So I am going to go all the way around the trunk here, and then I'm going to go under each branch. Right. As I go out to the end, I do want to leave the wire a little bit looser so that I don't break off the foliage, but I do still want positive control of the end of the branch here. So like that guy right there. And this I'm going to go around the top of the branch also. You want to keep the same angle, same spacing, and same spacing, and no gaps. I just say that a whole bunch of times today, so that I would remember. There was another tree that I was wiring up, and I was trying to remember what that was, and I did not get it right the last time. So this time, there you go. It's same angle, same spacing, no gaps. So now I'm going to bend these out a little bit. Remember I said I wanted to get these flat, so that there got these pieces flat. Then I don't want it going straight up like that, so I'm going to make it grow out more like a pad right there. Alright, at the end of the branch I do want it to kind of go upward just a touch, like that, to where it looks like it is kind of going up a little bit, kind of like that. So really you don't have to wire every single branch on the tree, which I probably am going to put some wire on that branch anyway, because where it's at and the length of that branch, it will grow like this. So it will stand straight up and try to grow through the tree, because the end of every branch wants to be the top of the tree. I know I've said that before, but the end of the branch wants to be the top of the tree. So if you allow a lower branch like this, this will grow straight up. Also, this will grow straight up, and then you've got a whole bunch of branches that are growing straight up, and then your tree looks like that, and that just doesn't look good. You want everything to kind of lay flat, right? So part of what I'm going to do is trim these back so that they are more of a pad rather than growing straight up, and we want to flatten them out with wire. I'm going to wire this up in a minute after I get these wired up. So these are a little bit thicker, so I'm going to use the thicker wire on them. And if you see what I'm doing, I'm going just past the end of the branch for the length, because as you wrap it, it doesn't really lose a whole lot of length. I'm going to wrap, I want this branch to go this way, so I want to wrap it that way. But first I'm going to go around the tree so that the wire has some stability, so that I'm not pulling on this branch or that branch. So then I'm holding the wire. I want to hold it really tight to make sure that the wire doesn't move on the crotch or the crotch of the branch, because that'll damage the branch, the bark of the branch, and then there's a good chance you'll lose that branch. I hope I'm not just saying everything over and over. If I am, then it's teaching me and it teaches you guys. It reiterates what I'm saying, I guess. If it gets to be to where the wire is way too big for the branch, just cut it off and then put another piece of wire to finish out the branch. You can use smaller wire, because I can use a piece of wire to wire this and this, or these two. Use one piece of wire to wire these two, and then a piece of wire on these also. I'm going to go under this branch. So this branch here is much thicker than this branch over here. So I can pretty much wire this one almost all the way to the end with this larger wire. And now that I am getting closer to the end, I am going to loosen it up a little bit. I just want positive control at the end of the branch here. Like that. And sometimes you can use the wire to bend the branch, so you just leave the end on there until you get it where you want and then cut it off. So a lot of this, I don't need it on there, so I just take it off. Turn this out right here. And you can see the tree's kind of starting to take a three-dimensional look to it. This one I might bring back this way. More like that. like I said, I get distracted sometimes. I go back and change things. Do you want to bring this branch this direction? But I don't want this part to look like it's been folded one way or the other on the trunk. I kind of want it to go out from the trunk and then kind of twist. Because otherwise it doesn't really look natural. But again, on this one, we've got several pieces here. So I'm going to fold it to where they all start spreading out. I'm going to bend it to where they spread out. So then this one here, I don't want to put it over the top of this branch, but I don't want it really over the top of this branch either. And it's going off this direction, so I don't want to put it right here too much, but I kind of want to kind of twist it into that space. I'm going to wrap this around one more time. Get this. Kind of like that. So now I'm going to wire these guys down, back out. Now this one, I want to bend back out this direction because it's kind of twisted around this direction. The way this tree sits on the bench, it's all trying to grow that direction because that's where the sun comes up. No, the sun sets that way. So, yeah. So it's all trying to grow that way. So I want it to pull back this way. So I'm going to wrap the wire around this way this time. I want it to go underneath the branch. So I'm going to wrap it on the branch this way. So I want it to go onto this branch too. I want it to go underneath the branch. I'm actually kind of doing pretty good at not knocking off all the foliage on these branches today. Maybe it's because I've been doing a lot of wiring, so I'm getting better at it. When I first started wiring trees, like every time I'd start wiring a branch, I'd just be knocking off all the foliage, and you get to the end of the branch and it looks okay, but I've knocked off like half the foliage of the branch, so I don't really have to trim it after that. It's all gone anyway. Alright. I want this branch to come out this direction. But I want this is facing up like this. So I want to roll it. But I'm going, yes, I want to roll it this way because that's the direction of the wire. It's going under the branch, so you can roll it that way, and it'll tighten up the wire instead of loosening the wire. If you go the other way, it'll loosen the wire up. You don't really want to loosen the wire up, right? So you roll the branch in the direction of the way the wire is wrapped on it. So now that made this this piece stick straight up. So now that's got to come off. Not a big deal. Not a big deal. And it disappears. I don't know where it went. Anyway. I know it kind of looks just like all the branches are kind of just going straight out on the tree right now. And you're right, they kind of are. But as the tree grows and as it gets more pads on it, it'll make sense. It'll make sense later. But at the end of, or the top of the tree, it does kind of start, the branches do kind of start facing upwards. Eventually these pads are going to be more of a circular shape. They're not going to be pointed like this. So as it grows, you're going to have kind of pads here and there. But I don't know if you've ever looked at a larger junipers, or we have a lot of Juniperus virginii out here. It's a red cedar, but it is a juniper, and it's just they call it a red cedar. The middle of the tree, the woody part of the tree, the xylem, is, and the heartwood is a red color, so that's probably why they call it that. But anyway, they have really round, like ball-shaped ends of the branches, or the foliage, and they do grow with the tips growing longer, but there's so much foliage in there that it just looks like a ball with little pokey things poking out of it, which is the foliage. So little bugs. So that's kind of what we're going for, you know, on this tree and any other juniper that you're going to make look like an upright style juniper. If you're going to do one that's a cascading or one that's really flat looking, then all that's kind of out the window. Like all that I just said is out the window. But like on an upright juniper, they're going to be more of a ball shaped pads. So that's what I'm going for on this, because this is going to be an informal upright. But I want it to look as natural as possible. So there's that for the main structure of the tree. That's all the main branches. This one, I'm going to leave this growing upright because the direction of it is still pretty interesting. I could wire this and make it kind of go in this direction, or even this direction, like this. I might do that later. For now, I think it looks all right, because this is going to grow out. It's going to be another secondary branch here, and then this will be like a bolt at the top of the tree, I guess you could call it. So now I'm going to use the really thin wire here. I'm going to go back and wire these guys down, and I'm going to wire these guys down. Probably just do that and come back to you. Alright, so I got these wired, or these two branches here wired up. So it is kind of tough sometimes with really thin branches, because you can see I'm moving this one and that one's moving. So sometimes it's a little tough to wire these branches without breaking the other one off. So you just like hold the wire really good and just bend the wire nice and gentle, nice and easy, take your time. And then when you're bending this branch and don't want to bend that branch, hold the end of the branch like nice and firm when you're bending it, so that you don't break the other one off. I'm going to take some of this interior foliage off here, because I don't really need it. So I want to bend these two branches, and these branches are going to be kind of loose with the wire, not exactly no gaps on these, because the branches are so small. The majority of the branch, if you can get it to where it doesn't have any gaps, then you do want to do that. But this I probably should have gone around and underneath the branch and come over the top of this branch, but I'm going to leave it, because if I take it off now, I'm just going to break it, and it's not going to do well. So what I want to do with this is I want to kind of bring these branches in closer, so that it makes a pad here instead of just being all spread out, completely spread out. So I'm going to bring it in just a little bit, bring it back out right here a little bit. I'm going to bring the end back in, kind of like that, to where it's got a little bit of a zigzag to it, but not super noticeable, kind of like that, to where that branch is held. I don't want it to be looking like a bowl, so I want these to definitely flatten out a little bit. I'm going to flatten them out together so I don't break them. Like that. And then this one, obviously I'm going to do the same thing as the other one. I'm going to kind of bring it in amongst these branches here, and then I'm going to cut this all back. I don't want to take off too much of the foliage right now, because it is wintertime. I just want to take the tips off, just to kind of even it out a little bit. And then on some of this foliage, I've talked about it before, where if you've got spiky foliage and you cut it back to where it's just all spiky foliage, there could be back buds in there, or it could back bud on that. But if it's a small piece like this, I'll bring it in closer. Okay, so this one, move out the way. There you go. You can see how it's got some branches on it already. Okay, I'm going to take this piece out. I don't need that piece anyway. Okay, so see how you can see that there's a couple of branches on it. If I cut it back past this little branch here. All right, so if I cut it back behind that little branch, there's a good chance that this isn't going to grow more. It's not going to back bud. So it's just going to be one spiky little branch indefinitely, and eventually it's going to die off anyway, because trees shed stuff that doesn't make sense to them or doesn't help them. They eventually do shed it themselves. So that being said, I don't want to keep all of this tiny little foliage for good, but for now, because it's going into winter time, I don't want to take it all off, because then that'll weaken the tree, and then it might not survive the winter at all. So that is definitely not what we want to do. We want to improve the tree rather than killing the tree, right? So I'm going to leave all that stuff on there for now. I am going to try bend these both down a little bit more. Like that. Now I'm going to take off some of the lower stuff on these branches. So you don't want anything sticking straight down to make a pad. And then I'm going to trim this back a little bit. And I've got this branch that's in the middle of all of this. I'm going to leave it for now, because it might help the tree later. I'm not 100% sure if it's going to, but this crazy long piece is not. So I'm going to cut that back. Cut that off. All right. So now I'm going to wire these down. So there's that one. Alright, so there's those two. Now I'm going to wire, so I'm going to wire these two together, and then I'm going to wire these two together. Those two branches. I've got two more branches here. I'm not going to wire these two. I don't want to break them off. I don't want to kill them out. I really need these. I really need these two branches. So I'm not going to take a. Well, I'm probably going to kill them anyway. Okay, so I'm not going to take a chance with those two branches. They're fine. They're going in a relatively decent direction anyway. So I'm going to pull these in. Kind of want it to orient to where all the branches are flat and get it into the profile there. Like that. And then this one also. Bring this one in and orient the foliage properly. I'm going to bring this one up and in. So now it looks like really, really wide, right? I don't want it super wide, so I'm going to bring them back. I'm going to bring them in a little bit closer. I don't want it to where they're like overlapping each other and like blocking out the sun for each other, but I do want them somewhat close. And obviously later on, once the tree develops a little bit more, then we can go back and revisit each one of the pads and see if we like the way they look, if they're too long down the branch, if they're too thick, too whatever, we can fix that. But I am going to round it off at the end here. I'm going to cut it back to good strong foliage. This one I am going to cut back to also unwrap the end of it. Alright, so there's that. Alright, now I'm going to go and just round off the tips of each one of these branches to cause it to backbud and to make a pad rather than continue growing longer. I want to keep all the branches compact. I want to shorten them up a little bit also, because this just, it looks like the tree is like just way out there. So eventually these branches will shorten up. These branches here. This branch here will probably stay about the same to here, but these will come in and it'll be more of a pad that's like that size, more like that size rather than that size. And that'll just happen over time by pruning the ends of the branches back each year, each time we prune it, and then eventually it will backbud and create a nice little pad. Get more and more compact each time. Clean this up just a little bit. See some stuff that's just unnecessary in there. Open it up a little bit. Alright, yeah. So I really like it for now. That is going to reset the shape of the tree. Hopefully you like it. Hopefully it inspires you to be able to do better on y'all's trees. I know it inspires me each time I work on one of my trees. It inspires me to do better on my other trees. I get more practice and get better at it. Like with the wiring, I didn't knock a whole lot of foliage off any of the branches while I was wiring it out, which is really cool. So, alright, so that's going to do it for this video. Hopefully you liked the tree. Hopefully you liked the work that I did on it. Hopefully I didn't ramble too much. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. Appreciate all the new subscribers that I've gotten. And that's going to do it. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.